The goal is to make Solana so fast that we're not going to be too worried about L2s and network extensions until your FPGA is on fire because it's running at such a high TPS. So we are at a point where that is now possible, that an LLM or a system of LLMs running on any validator, or even just calling API, can set up and run and automate the process of running a validator node.
GM, and welcome back to SolanaFloor. We're nearing the end of January. There's change due in the US. We've had some ups, we've had some downs, but the one thing that hasn't changed is Solana's obsession with being fast and being cheap. Now, back in September, we spoke with the Solana Foundation Executive Director, Dan Elbert, who said nobody's bullish enough on Firedancer. We're going to challenge that today. So today we're chatting with just the man to tell us all about Solana's performance, because we're joined by Rex. Now, Rex has previously worked with companies like Intel and NVIDIA, and he entered crypto through Cosmos. And more recently, he's been instrumental in developing the Agave Validator client, which enhances Solana's network performance and reliability. So with his technical background and all of his experience in the Solana ecosystem, Rex is definitely the guy to answer some of our technical questions. Rex, GM, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Just so we're up to date with what you're working on, Agave 2.0 or 2.0, I should say, can you get us up to speed there from a technical standpoint and the perspective of Solana's network performance?
So I joined Solana about a year ago, and I work on the core technology team of Solana. Many of the core engineers were formerly of Solana Labs, and we maintain the Agave Validator, which is the primary validator most widely used across the network today. And we also interface extensively with the Jump team as they roll out Firedancer. So over the last year, the main topic has been separate the Agave code base from the former Solana Labs code base, and then get Agave up and running. So that all that work is done. And with Singapore Breakpoint, the launch of Firedancer, initial tests, demonstrations of Firedancer on mainnet, that was kind of like working on those things, maintaining Agave, getting the separation. That was most of the work of last year. But now what's happening is a lot more work is going into Agave itself, finding ways to fine tune Agave, get additional performance out of Agave. And you see some of our core engineers on Twitter posting actively on these topics. Like, I can recommend some handles to follow. So basically what's happening is they've been finding a number of ways to tune up Agave, make it go faster. I don't know if we call it Agave 2.0, but we're up to 2.1.21, I think is the latest. I totally probably messed up those numbers. But yes, so there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, a lot of performance optimization going on right now.
When we think about the SVM, there's been a lot of progress there. You've got Firedancer, Frankendancer, Agave now as well. We're getting closer to that 1 million transaction per second being a reality, it seems. But where are we on that journey? How far are we from 1 million transactions a second?
Mert did a tweet yesterday, and I think he was referencing some synthetic tests that the Firedancer team was doing. At this time, there is a set of tests going on where Firedancer is being put on testnet. Validators are being encouraged to adopt and try out Firedancer. We're seeing some people running Firedancer on mainnet, Frankendancer technically. So I think that we are seeing significant performance out of Frankendancer. We do interface with the Firedancer team, and we do support Frankendancer as it's being developed and streamlined. But we also believe that Agave itself has a lot of life left in it, and there's a lot of good things about Agave, and we're continuing to support Agave and invest engineering into Agave. So I think there's a lot of positive things you can expect in the near future on the Agave side.
And I want to go back also to something Toli said not too long ago. He has argued that for validator client implementations is sort of a sweet spot for optimal network operation, if you will. Is he right? Can we really arrive at a number like 4? Do you agree with him?
I think if you've watched Toli communicate on X or Twitter, he's frequently referenced the biggest fear that he has had voiced, and he may have other fears other than that, is that a bug will be introduced which breaks the main validator, which is Agave, And the hope of the multi-client world is that such a bug will not bring down the network. So if you've got Firedancer, Syndica's version of it, if you've got Tiny Dancer, if you've got Mithril and some of these new ones running, then a bug in one code base won't bring down the network. So I think mathematically, from the Ethereum side, I think there's been plenty of economic analysis. 2 is good, 4 is better. In an ideal world, we would have multiple clients that are in flight, maintained by multiple teams. Getting up to 2, Agave's 1 million lines of code, and it's a technical challenge, and the Jump team has definitely done very significant engineering work. And what's being demonstrated with Frankendancer is not a full rewrite. It is a rewrite of part of Agave. Ultimately, they hope to do the whole thing in C, including the SVM itself, which is still in Rust. So 4 would be nice. I think we're yet to see 2 full rewrites running. We've got a partial rewrite, which is showing a lot of promise, and then we've got Agave. So
there's a lot happening, as you mentioned there, and I want to sort of stay on that topic for a second here. Firedancer, Frankendancer, Agave, we talk about all these sort of technical terms, just to get people up to speed with why it is that this type of technological development is critical. Can you sort of explain to me the set of circumstances rather, that make it critical timing for Solana to introduce these advancements?
Solana is about increase bandwidth, reduce latency. There's no 12, 15-year, Solana roadmap. Generally speaking, from my observation, I haven't been here, through the trenches for the last 5 years, but the approach taken by engineering at Solana is very pragmatic. It's like, let's clear the next roadblock from an engineering perspective to make the client faster, to make the protocol faster. And then once that's cleared, let's clear the next one after that, then the next one after that. So it proceeds kind of in that way of like prioritizing the next big problem. Like if you follow Trent, one of the early engineers on Solana, he's very vocal, and he basically says the goal is to make Solana so fast that we're not going to be too worried about L2s and network extensions until your FPGA is like on fire because it's running at such a high TPS. So we're all in on optimizing the speed of the core protocol itself, under the Solana umbrella, and make that as fast as humanly possible. At the same time, we're not like hostile and not like competitive or whatever. It's very open to other people coming in, forking the client, trying to do things, building network extensions. So if people want to do that, Tolly has been very open to supporting that. So we're very welcoming to engineering teams coming in, trying to build businesses, trying to increase the decentralization, trying to launch network extensions, trying to find ways to speed up Solana. So like all these things, having more engineers, solving more bugs, closing more issues, finding more optimizations, it makes the whole thing go faster. And I think until we see that we are operating as close to line rate as humanly possible, it's the urge to make it go as fast as possible is not going to stop. I did a post maybe a couple weeks ago. I think we've seen at least 3 or 4 teams that are claiming, soon just launched their mainnet last Friday, or was it the Friday before last? And their goal is 30,000 TPS. We've got Fogo, who are working on an L1, which is meant to use only Firedancer. I don't know what their target is, but I'm guessing it's, a million, And then we've got Bullet, which is looking for 25,000 to 40,000, something in that range. And then we've got X1, which are doing an L1. And the founder of that project has been finding speed ups in Agave just through basic tinkering. And I saw him posting, 11,000, 20,000, 30,000 TPS. So having all these people working together and finding these performance optimizations, I think, is ultimately just a good thing.
You mentioned the layer twos. You mentioned obviously that Solana's sort of obsessed, hellbent with being fast and cheap, which is baked into to the all the decisions that are made on a technical level. The discussion of L2s though is a little bit more polarizing than whether or not Solana should be the fastest and the cheapest. Some people say, yeah, we're going to need niche cases. L2s are going to sort of need to exist on their own. Other people say no, fragmentation issues are plaguing Ethereum already. Why would we sort of want to emulate that? Where do you stand on Solana L2s? Are they necessary? Are they a necessary evil? Or should we not even maybe be talking about them as much as we are?
Having watched the discussion and then comparing it to the Ethereum discussion and how things are done in Cosmos, which is where I got my start in crypto. I think the biggest topic everybody is saying is, are L2s parasitic to the L1? I think it kind of depends on the speed at which the L1 moves, because it's like, let's say I weigh 400 pounds and I'm not doing much to change my life. I keep eating pizza, I keep swilling beer, and then I'm watching somebody come into my area and they're running laps and they're eating broccoli and they're doing, and it's like the L2s are parasitic if I don't have my act together, if I'm not continuing to out innovate the L2s that have come around me. So if I'm putting in the work in engineering and making things as fast as humanly possible and hitting my execution cadence, I don't have to worry about somebody coming and running laps around me. So I think the faster we go as a core protocol, the less we have to worry about others being parasitic. Of course, they're going to try, because it's 100 billion market cap. And who knows what will happen in the coming years. Of course, people are going to come and try to outrun the L1. Of course they are, and like you look at L2 beat, and there's like 50 plus of those. When you create a 300 plus billion dollar public good and asset, people are going to come and try and build businesses off of it. And I think the degree to which you have to worry about them is the amount to what is proportional to uh, how well you're executing. So I kind of see things that way, and I don't see the network extensions, as we're calling them, as being particularly threatening, because a lot of times we're either working with them or we're taking inspiration from them, or in the case of Firedancer, there's been a number of advancements from Firedancer that have been or are being moved back into Agave itself. So we're actually learning from them. It's like, if somebody comes and they're outrunning me, and I learn that they're taking, protein shakes and creatine, it's like, well, we can do creatine too. We can do that. So I think if you've got a growth mindset and you're still executing, I don't think the network extensions and L2s are parasitic.
On a similar sort of line of questioning, when we're talking about infrastructure and whether or not we want fragmentation, one of the sort of emergent discussions is around autonomous infrastructure. So, moving on to what that might look like, could you break down how you think it's going to change things for the everyday user of Solana in the coming year? Autonomous infrastructure, are we going to see a Cambrian explosion of it? Or is it going to be maybe a little bit slower to develop than people might expect?
If you look in the Solana Tech Discord, where all the validators and RPC nodes are, there's pages and pages, like hundreds of pages of discussion of people in the validator beginners channel, and they all come in and they ask like the same 5 questions, and then there's a lot of variations on those 5 questions. 80% of them boil down to, is your system have, like, is it fast enough, and do you have enough memory, and do you have enough like bandwidth? And it's like, there's no reason, and I've done it. You can't take all 300 pages of Q&A and provide that to an LLM and have it, as a clean file, and it can use that to answer nearly any validator support question. So that's the first stage. It's just realizing, like, okay, like, this thing that's annoying a lot of people is like these little getting started problems with validators. That problem's kind of like almost completely solved if people want to use AI as it is now with Claude and OpenAI 4.0. And so I started thinking about that last year, and then I had this idea of, what if I took all the top Solana blogs and the Helios blogs and the Anza blogs, and I condensed that into a single file and then fed that to an LLM and then asked it literally to answer anything about Solana, would it be able to do that? And the answer is yeah. Like I wrote a scraper, I scraped like all these blogs, and I released the scraper as a GitHub gist, and that kind of it results in like a 1 megabyte file, and you can answer almost any Solana question with a 1 megabyte file plus an LLM. And I'm like, well, that seems to solve all the validator support questions. That solves a ton of the Rust questions and Web3 JS questions. That solves all kinds of, Solana's been criticized most for the chewing glass thing. It's like, well, what if that problem went away? What if that's not no longer a problem? And I think we're there. And I've been hesitant to talk too much about that because I think that's like kind of a radical realization that like we can automate. So that's the first part, like automating the developer experience. The next part is you mentioned autonomous infrastructure. So all right, so if we can answer any validator support question with the 1 megabyte file just by downloading the Discord history, um, now you've got this agent thing coming in. You've got projects like self-operating computer, which is something it uses multiple agents running locally on your machine to like control everything. And like you can give it a mission like go search Google like and tell me the Bitcoin price twice a day. So you can automate all those workflows. Then you've got things like llama.cpp and llama which allow you to run LLMs locally and Olama. So you can run LLMs locally, or you can call out to them using APIs. And with the rise of agents, now we've got these like multi-agent systems. It's like AI16Z doing a hedge fund, and the way they're implementing that is like you kind of have different AI characters, and then they read the data feed, and then they have a discussion amongst themselves. And like you've got one with one personality, another with another personality, and then they decide what to buy, and like based on different social media feeds they're reading. So you can combine all these things, and you can build multi-agent systems that run on a validator node that are capable of troubleshooting any validator problem that you might have. So we are at a point where that is now possible. That an agent, an LLM, or a system of LLMs running on any validator, or even just calling API, can set up and run and automate the process of running a validator node. So I think it hasn't happened yet, but I think it's going to happen. I'm already talking to several teams that are exploring autonomous infrastructure, and I think that would be really good for decentralization. Like the more nodes, the better. The more light clients, the more RPCs. And if you've got more nodes, then you've got more decentralizations and more. And I think that conversation is going to evolve. And I think the most likely place it's going to start is people starting to use LLMs just to keep their existing nodes running, like just to automatically troubleshoot like common things that can happen just by referencing the Discord history on like validator node troubleshooting. And I think ultimately it's going to evolve to AI just running the validator node. I think that's coming.
Exciting. You mentioned quite a few sort of advancements there. I want to be specific here. What do you feel is the biggest unlock from this autonomous infrastructure that people are working on?
So at the end of last year, which was the end of 2024, Send AI organized this AI hackathon, and they got like 400, almost 500 projects in a couple weeks. And when I saw that, I was like, one, I think that just ensured Solana is going to be number one in AI for 2025, and that took 2 weeks. And then two, I felt like what we're seeing is that people are massively more productive than they were before. Like if you'd done a hackathon before, you might have gotten happy to get 30 projects. Now you're getting 500. And the reason why are you getting 500 is because you're talking. You did a hackathon for the AI developers, and the AI developers are AI experts, so they're using AI tools, so they're building like 10 times more projects faster. And I didn't even enter it, but I built 4 hacks in the week because I was excited about it. And it's like if you are playing around with AI already, and there's a hackathon, like the AI hackathon was 10 times more productive for a reason. Those are the most productive developers in the ecosystem. So I think there's that. And then afterwards, it turned out that the tokens that were launched from that hackathon crossed a market cap of 500 million. And I think that was so like shocking because it was like, hold on, you created like $1 billion, $500 million of value in 2 weeks by doing a hackathon. So I think there's a flywheel there between the ability for an AI developer to launch a token and then monetize what they're doing and then like iterate, and then the productivity. So I think there's a flywheel there where there's a lot of AI hackers that are just doing, oh, I built my multi-agent system on GitHub, and then they're cluing into being like, oh, I can also launch a token. Well, if I launch a token and then I market it and I start producing videos and content, that makes the token go up. So now it was like a weekend hobby for me to dink around, and like I was getting GitHub stars, but now I'm making tens of millions of dollars. And that flywheel is, I think that flywheel is going to motivate a lot of AI developers to come into crypto. And I'm already seeing it. Like there's these guys. There's a guy named Yohei. He's a Seattle local, and he's always popular on Twitter for doing AI hacking. And then when now he's kind of working on this Pippin framework, and he did this 1 hour long demo on Monday showing this end to end baby AGI framework capable of like designing a personality and plugging into crypto. Like people like Yohei that are like the super AI hackers that are open minded, they're going to be major winners this year. So I think that's going to create extreme acceleration. Um, People have been saying that AI is going to be dominated by OpenAI and Tesla and Google. And I'm like, actually, the indie hackers, there's going to be a lot of indie hackers getting unbelievably wealthy by putting their GitHub projects and then iterating them. I think the incentives are gonna drive the indie hacker groups to make tons of progress, and that will have compounding effects.
Exciting. So overall, we're more bullish on sort of open development of technology as a result of AI than we are sort of afraid of OpenAI and some of these bigger names taking over.
OpenAI might have like, I don't know, 100 AI PhDs, but they're all trapped. Like none of them. If one of them has some crazy idea and comes up with something, Sam Altman's got to approve of it. They can't put it out because it will scare people. And but like in crypto, it's just kind of like, well, that person might like quit their job and be like, YOLO, I'm just gonna like slap a ticker on it and go. And I think I've got something 10% better than OpenAI. Well, I'm just gonna list the token and go. And it's unknown what that's going to do when the incentives are like that.
Absolutely. Speaking of incentives, kind of nicely brings me on to my next topic here. I want to talk about MEV and sandwiching. It's been a bit of a topic lately. So, from a technical perspective, when we think about MEV and sandwich attacks, someone like Toli might say it's an engineering issue. Increased bandwidth, reduced latency. Bob's your uncle. Everything's fine. But what are your thoughts on MEV and sandwiching issues on Solana? Are they issues? How should we tackle them?
I don't think they're issues. I think they are opportunities for a lot of different projects that I'm seeing in the space. I think I'm seeing multiple different lines of attack on the problem. And I'm not the one getting sandwiched, for millions of dollars right now. I'm not like day trading. So it's been labeled as like, a lot of people are saying this is the number one problem in Solana. So I'm seeing multiple efforts to solve the problem. The first one begins with like just exposing it. Like I can't remember what the website is. It's like sandwich.me or something like that. So just like exposing the behavior and making that visible in public so people could understand it. And then the next is, well, what do you do about it? So there's a project called Lighthouse Protocol, and they're introducing intents. And an intent is it kind of lets you. They're talking about doing an intent that monitors validators and figures out which ones are enabling sandwiching behavior, and then allowing end users that integrate Lighthouse Protocol to sort of you can kind of build in like a landmine into your transaction where if it detects it's running on a bad validator or suspected bad validator, it'll terminate itself. And that leads down the direction of like either a validator registry where validators are giving ratings based on the sandwiching behavior over the last period, or even a blacklist, which was proposed by Brian Long from Triton. So that's the direction that's going, and that's kind of like a application layer thing where maybe Jupiter or Radium or the major exchanges kind of like agree that they're going to work with these intents and registries and blacklists and offer protection for users. So that's like kind of a an application level thing approach. In the meantime, one of the projects going on at Anza and across the ecosystem is we're in the process of defining what slashing is going to be like in Solana. So there's two SIMDs, 0402 and 0412, I think. I might have gotten the second one wrong. The first one's just a logger, and that's going to identify people producing bad blocks and bad votes. And then the second one's going to be economic penalties and defining the economics of quadratic functions for slashing stake. So there's some discussion about whether slashing might be used. And the gist of that was no, it's not the right place. It doesn't belong in the protocol itself because determining sandwiching is a little bit more qualitative. So it seems like overall the direction is to leave it to end users and leave it to the application layer and things like intents, possibly blacklists in some circumstances. So I think there's a number of potential solutions. I don't think it's solved by any means. And I think it'll continue to be a discussion.
Are we just sort of slapping a band-aid on this, given that, these bad actors, you mentioned that they were coming into Discord and basically gathering information. They could theoretically go and just spin up another validator if they do get blacklisted, right? And you mentioned some of the incentive mechanisms there to continue doing this sandwiching. So, yeah, are we finding the solution? Are we getting closer to the solution, or are we just sort of slapping a band-aid on it and moving on?
Yeah, so the first part is like the technology layer, and there's multiple different approaches there. Then the second part is like the social layer, which is like, launching websites where there's transparency and visibility. Then there's things like like DeFi front ends, uh, specifically enforcing their own kinds of like approach to ensure that protect their users. And then I think there's still more work to be done, which is like raising awareness amongst DeFi traders and end users that they are the victim. Like I think a lot of them may not know that they're the victims of this. They might just come in and start swapping and getting ripped off and not realize it. So I think that raising awareness on the social front end and kind of making it so that users are demanding protection from sandwiching from the protocols they're using. So let's say, I'm not to pick on Jupiter or whoever or Radium, be like, well, I know on Radium I'm not going to get sandwiched, but maybe I get sandwiched on some other DeFi protocol. And I've been educated as a DeFi trader that I should demand these features and this protection. So I'm just going to stop using DeFi front ends that don't have this. So whatever the solution is, whether it's Blacklist or Intense or Paladin, having the awareness of the users so that they demand, those experiences that protect them from sandwiching in the first place. And I think that could be very helpful. So I think it's going to require a multi-pronged approach to resolve, honestly.
That makes a lot of sense. And if we think then about the next, 12 months specifically, what are your expectations around autonomous agents? People are talking about AI agents on chain, truly revolutionizing the way people interact with each other, with protocols, with apps. We've seen hundreds of Twitter reply bots. People are saying most of these AI agents that are claiming to be autonomous are actually just LARPs. So, what does this eureka moment look like, if there is one, in the next 12 months around autonomous agents?
I think that the majority of the current financial markets are already algorithmically traded. So it's not humans, anyways, in the existing markets. I haven't seen the numbers, but I'm guessing the majority of transactions in Solana are bots. I believe, I'm pretty sure that's the case. So we're already in the case where, algorithms at least, or more primitive bots that are just using more, are already the leading traders. So what AI agents bring in is crypto has a unique layer of culture and memes that directly affects price, and agents that are able to plug into Telegram, Discord, Signal, other communities, Twitter, are able to understand the culture and generate new culture. So, with Yohei's Pippin, it's just posting memes. It's doing AI generating memes. So I think having AI begin to drive culture by analyzing what people want and responding to it can result in NFTs and meme coins, and understanding which meme coins are going to go up. So I think that part of it is going to have a major impact. So I think in that way, agents are going to be really, really popular.
And do you foresee any sort of major risks for your average user? You mentioned there that a majority of transactions are more than likely to be bots already, as it is in the traditional financial system. Do you think with the proliferation of these AI agents that are truly autonomous, and of course the many that are pretending to be autonomous but actually LARPs, do you think there's some major risk for the degens in the trenches?
Obviously, it's going to be pretty hard to detect, the auto rugging that's sure to incur. Like, is the dev actually a dev? Uh, so I think there's going to be a lot of that. I can't even speculate. I think somebody is going to have to, uh, one of the most popular strategies, most effective strategies now is watching people's wallets. So it's like if you know you've got the wallet of a cabal insider and like they're consistently profitable, then you can copy their wallet. So I think agents are going to drive a very significant need to get a lot more sophisticated about wallet monitoring, so you can figure out who's doing what and who's legit. So I think I'm sure that topic's going to have to develop a lot.
Some pretty good alpha there. And I want to tie this autonomous agent discussion into all the work that you're doing, and of course, the infrastructural side of building a blockchain network. So let's think into the next 12 months. Autonomous agent AI activity goes through the roof. We have even more transactions. How does that fit into your vision for scalability in the next 12 months of Solana?
So let's say somebody comes up with a magical AI that can run it and keep running validators and make them highly performant and high uptime and good behavior. That's still going to the main thing though is attracting stake to your validator. So even if you do all those things and you're a good citizen and that's all autonomous, you still need more stake. So um, hopefully we're going to see a major bull run, pending next week with whatever Trump is going to announce, and then that will enable more validators. But I think one of the biggest aspects of running a validator is, showing up in public spaces, showing up on X and Discord and being useful. So I think if you are going to automate validators, you also need to automate the community outreach and showing up and being helpful. So my hope is that if somebody does automate validators, they also automate have bots associated with those validators that go and proactively do nice things in the answer questions in the Discord and so on. And if you nail that equation, you might actually be able to come up with validators that do attract stake. So I think there's an interesting unsolved problem where it's like an agent, but it's useful and it runs a validator and then it attracts stake. So maybe somebody builds like the ultimate autonomous validator this year and it gets like majority stake. We already saw that on the Kaito boards, like the number one post shit poster is a bot now. So why wouldn't that also happen in the validator space? Why wouldn't the number one validator be an autonomous agent in 6 months?
Exciting. Rex, where can we follow along with all the stuff that you're working on, all the developments, all the announcements? Where can we get them in the next 12 months?
REXSTJOHN on X. Just follow me on X. That's pretty much all I do. I don't do LinkedIn. So that's pretty much the best place.
Rex, thank you so much for talking to us today. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day.